Let's bring in Gadi Adelman. He's a counterterrorism expert and advisor, and Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, the founder and president of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us. And Gadi, let's kick it off with you. We're getting more information about the suspect. What is your read on things so far?
Not surprising. You know, he fits every statistic. A male, between the ages of 18 and 34, Middle Eastern descent, originally from Sudan. I believe he immigrated to Britain under the asylum. He got asylum in 2010. So not really that unusual. I'm not surprised at all.
Gadi, very quickly, he had no knives, no weapons, no explosives in the car with him, no secondary attack method. Does that signal anything to investigators?
Not really, because what you have to understand, this is what both Al-Qaeda and ISIS have been calling for, as far as being able to just take a vehicle and create a terrorist act. So the fact that he had no secondary weapons doesn't really surprise me. A lot of these guys, they really believe and understand and accept the fact that they're probably not going to survive the attack themselves, and in which case, you know, under their ideology, they're going to paradise. So the fact that he had no secondary weapons doesn't really come as a shock to me.
Dr. Jasser, there seems to be a reluctance or a delay, if you will, in identifying the suspect as an immigrant from Sudan. And initially, the UK's Minister of State for Security, Ben Wallace, said that the incident is being investigated as a terrorist matter and that the driver of the car is, and I quote, a British citizen who came from another country originally. So Wallace did not disclose the original nationality or the religious background or the race of the suspect. Why do you think that is?
Well, it's getting worse. I mean, we had a suspect in Toronto who, for a few days, was being described as mentally ill, and clearly he ended up having allegiances to ISIS. And with this gentleman, again, it's almost as if the more, you know, as you look at the numbers, perhaps globally, of attacks decreasing, we fall back into the rut of everything has a partisan use. And since the global jihadism issue doesn't have a use in partisan politics, it sort of gets ignored and marginalized, especially for the left, who wants to use Muslims for their identity politic. So therefore, let's focus on mental illness, let's focus on something else, and by the time 3 or 4 days roll around, then we'll let it trickle out that, oh, maybe he looked at some ISIS websites, maybe he was a jihadist, and by that time everyone's forgot about it. And I have to tell you, the danger of this is that we will become complacent and we'll forget that a quarter of the world's population is still subject to dictatorships, tyrannies, Islamist resurgence in Turkey and Qatar, in Iran, which is on its heels. So ultimately, the global politic hasn't changed, and yet because of the decrease in terror attacks, our media is becoming complacent, and they want to give Muslims in America and Canada and Europe sort of a break, if you will, from the pressure. And
yeah, that is certainly problematic. We did mention that according to the study, there has been a decline in attacks, certainly in Europe and in the U.S. But just today, a huge attack in Kabul, a suicide bomber killing 48 people there, injuring 67 people in a bomb explosion at an education center. And Dr. Jasser, it's believed to be the work of Islamic State. No one has claimed official responsibility, but the work of Islamic State. So to your point, are we seeing a reduction of terrorist attacks in the Europe and the U.S. because of better preventative measures, but we're not seeing it in other parts of the world because of a lack thereof?
Well, we're spending the most resources we have. I mean, Homeland Security is the largest department in the American government, and our whack-a-mole program is becoming more effective. And you look geopolitically, ISIS in Syria is it's non-existent now in Iraq, and it's almost non-existent in Syria, and almost being decimated because this President Trump, has given the military the freedom to make sure that they're unable to operate and have a command and control center. But having said that, anyone who believes that that we are further ahead today in 2018 against global jihad, Islamic State ideology, radical Islam, with this New Mexico compound that we found, with all of the, every week we're finding new sort of permeations of radical Islamist ideology. The difference might be since 2014, when ISIS peaked, is now Saudi Arabia has retracted its funding of global Muslim Brotherhood alliances. Now they're against the Brotherhood. So geopolitics, I think, is playing a role in the kinetic aspect of the Islamist viralization, if you will. But give that time, and the AKP in Turkey is going to continue to fuel radical Islam. The Iranian regime will probably increase. So geopolitics will have its shifts from year to year. The ideology of global political Islam is as much of a threat today as it ever was, and that's why we need to start putting resources into countering political Islam and the precursors of radical Islam, like we did in the Cold War against communism, which we have yet to do against political Islam.
Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, thank you so much. Appreciated, founder and president of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy, and Gadi Adelman, counterterrorism expert. Thank you for your analysis. We'll have you both back soon.
Thank you.
All right.